Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today we're looking at MGM Resorts.
MGM.
Ticker symbol MGM.
That's right.
Now you probably know them for their casinos and entertainment, but we're going beyond the Vegas Strip today to uncover whether their stock is a hidden gem or a risky bet.
Exactly. We'll be dissecting their recent stock performance, the news moving the needle, and what analysts predict for their future. And of course, we can't ignore that incredible comeback story in Macau. We're talking record-breaking numbers that have actually surpassed pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
It is.
Right now, MGM's stock is trading at $34.65.
Right.
A good chunk lower than its 52-week high of $48.24.
Uh-huh.
That might make it look like a bargain,
Sure.
but is there more to this story?
Well, what's fascinating here is that while the stock is down from its peak, it's bounced back significantly from a low of $28 last June.
Okay.
This suggests MGM is showing resilience even with broader market fluctuations.
Interesting.
But to understand if it's a true bargain, we need to dig deeper.
Let's talk about that Macau rebound.
Yeah.
That record-breaking third quarter was hard to miss.
Yeah, it was a big one.
What exactly drove that success?
Macau has been a game changer for MGM. Their volume is now a staggering 20% higher than it was back in 2019 before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
This isn't just a recovery, it's a complete surge beyond expectations.
Yeah.
But the question is, what's fueling this growth?
Right.
Is it just pent-up demand, or are there specific factors within Macau that are benefiting MGM more than others?
Right.
That's something investors need to consider.
That's a great point. It's not enough to just see the numbers. We need to understand the underlying story.
Absolutely.
So will this momentum last? What's the outlook for MGM's future performance?
Analyst forecasts for 2025 paint an intriguing picture.
Yeah.
They're projecting earnings per share of $2.34 for the full year.
Oh.
However, the quarterly estimates range from 43 cents to 70 cents. That's quite a spread.
Yeah, that range does raise some eyebrows. Does it mean analysts are generally optimistic but with some reservations? Or is there something else at play?
Right.
What should our listeners take away from this?
It's a sign that there's both opportunity and uncertainty.
Okay.
The median price target is $54.37, but the forecasts range from $40 to $75.
Wow.
To understand this disparity, we need to look at the factors driving those extremes. Are some analysts overly bullish on Macau's continued success, while others are more cautious about potential headwinds?
Yeah.
That's the kind of analysis that can help investors make informed decisions.
So what recent news has been influencing MGM's stock price? Anything that could explain this range of analyst opinions?
Well, Macau's performance is definitely a major driver in Q3 MGM. China reported a 14% year-over-year increase in net revenues,
Okay.
along with a 5% rise in adjusted property, EBITDA resulting in a healthy 26% margin. These are the kinds of numbers that get investors excited.
And it's not just the numbers. We've seen positive ratings from analysts at firms like JMP Securities, Wells Fargo, and Barclays Capital that adds to the positive sentiment.
Absolutely. Those endorsements carry significant weight, especially when they come from well-respected firms. But it's also important to remember that analyst opinions can change quickly, especially in a dynamic industry like gaming and entertainment.
True. And speaking of potential shakeups,
Yeah.
MGM's next earnings report is just around the corner, expected on February 12th. Could this be a turning point for the stock? What should our listeners be thinking about as we approach that date?
Earnings reports are always a wild card. They can either validate the current trends or throw a curveball, sending the stock in a different direction. The key will be to analyze those results in the context of everything we've discussed.
So,
Macau's performance, the broader market sentiment, and those varying analyst projections. It's all about connecting the dots.
context is key. So let's shift gears and look at some technical indicators for MGM. The stock is currently trading above its 50-day simple moving average, but below its 200-day simple moving average. Now, for our listeners who are visual learners, what does this mixed signal tell us about MGM's trajectory?
It suggests a short-term upward trend, but a less certain long-term outlook. The 50-day average indicates positive momentum over the past couple of months, but the fact that it's still below the 200-day average suggests some lingering doubts about sustained growth.
Interesting. And we can't ignore the relatively low trading volume we're seeing. How should we interpret that in light of everything else we've discussed?
Low volume can be a sign of caution. It could mean that investors are waiting on the sidelines looking for more clarity before making a move. This makes the upcoming earnings report even more crucial.
Huh.
Will it be the catalyst that sparks a surge in buying or selling? That's the million-dollar question.
I like how you frame that. So let's bring in the Relative Strength Index, or RSI for short. It's currently at 54.35 for MGM. For our listeners who might not be familiar with this indicator, can you break down what this number signifies and how it fits into the bigger picture?
The RSI measures the magnitude of recent price changes to evaluate overbought or oversold conditions. An RSI of 54.35 falls within the neutral zone, meaning MGM is neither overbought nor oversold. It's essentially in a holding pattern, waiting for a catalyst to push it one way or the other.
Yeah.
This aligns with the low trading volume we mentioned earlier, suggesting a period of watchful waiting among investors.
Okay, so we have some intriguing pieces to the puzzle. 53% green days over the last 30 days,
Right.
which paints a positive picture. But then we have a fear and greed index of 39, pointing to fear in the market. What's your take on these seemingly contradictory signals, and what do they tell us about investor sentiment surrounding MGM?
It's a classic case of cautious optimism mixed with a dose of market apprehension. On one hand, you have MGM's strong performance in Macau and positive analyst sentiment. But there's also that looming uncertainty surrounding the broader market and the upcoming earnings report. Investors are weighing the potential rewards against the risks, and that hesitation is reflected in the fear and greed index.
It seems like we've covered a lot of ground already, but we're just getting started.
Yeah, we have a lot more to unpack.
Okay, so let's get to the heart of the matter. What's the verdict based on what we've discussed so far? What key takeaways should our listeners keep in mind when considering MGM Resorts?
Based on our analysis, I think a hold recommendation is appropriate at this time.
Hold. So we're not rushing to buy, but we're not hitting the sell button just yet either.
Exactly. MGM is displaying strong potential, particularly with that incredible performance in Macau, but we need to be mindful of the overall market climate and those upcoming earnings numbers.
That makes sense. Those earnings have the potential to shift perspectives. So for our listeners who are eager to make informed decisions, what should they be watching closely in the coming weeks?
I'd say pay close attention to two key factors. First, how MGM continues to perform in Macau. Will this remarkable growth trajectory continue, or might we see a slowdown? And second, those February earnings numbers, will they reinforce the positive trend we've been seeing or throw a wrench into the works?
So it's all about watching those key indicators and understanding how they fit into the larger picture. But before we go any further, it's crucial to remind our listeners that we're offering insights here, not financial advice.
Absolutely. This episode is meant to be a starting point for your own research. You should always consult with a financial professional before making any investment decisions.
Couldn't agree more. Investing is a personal journey and requires careful consideration now. Before we wrap up our analysis, I'd love to hear what stood out to you most in our conversation about MGM Resorts. Share your insights in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if you found this episode helpful, why not share it with a friend who might also be interested in navigating the world of investing? We appreciate you tuning in.
Now, when we think about investing, it can sometimes feel very numbers-driven and detached, but what's interesting about MGM is that it's a company many people have a personal connection to.
Yeah, you've hit on a key point, whether it's a memorable trip to Las Vegas, seeing a show, or even just recognizing that iconic logo AGM has a way of capturing our imaginations.
Exactly, and that familiarity can make investing feel less intimidating, more relatable.
Absolutely. It's like we're not just analyzing charts and graphs, we're looking at a piece of popular culture.
So true, and that brings us to another interesting aspect of MGM, their global footprint. They're not just a Vegas brand anymore.
You're absolutely right. They've strategically expanded their operations into Macau, other parts of Asia, and even ventured into the world of online gaming.
That diversification is a crucial element of their strategy. Wouldn't you say it helps to spread risk and tap into new and emerging markets?
Absolutely. It's a smart move, especially as the global landscape of entertainment and gaming continues to evolve.
So for our listeners who are thinking about adding a bit of Vegas to their portfolios, what are some key takeaways from our analysis of MGM today?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that MGM is a company in transition. They're not just about brick-and-mortar casinos anymore. They're embracing new technologies, expanding their global reach, and adapting to the changing tastes of consumers.
And the adaptability is essential in today's fast-paced world.
Precisely, investors need to look beyond the traditional image of MGM and recognize the potential for growth and innovation that lies ahead.
It's not just about gambling anymore. It's about entertainment experiences and creating a brand that resonates with a global audience.
And that's what makes MGM such a fascinating company to follow. They're at the forefront of a rapidly evolving industry, and their future looks very bright.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from MGM's financial performance to their global expansion and their adaptation to the digital age.
It's been a pleasure exploring this company with you.
Likewise. And a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this investing journey. We hope you've gained some valuable insights into MGM Resorts.
Remember, this is just the beginning of your research. Do your due diligence, stay informed, and make investment decisions that align with your financial goals.
And as always, we encourage you to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast. Share this episode with your friends and leave a comment with your thoughts on MGM Resorts. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, happy investing.
You know, it's interesting how we often perceive certain companies.
Yeah,
We see MGM and we think of the bright lights of Vegas, the casinos, the entertainment, but they're also making some intriguing moves in the digital space.
that's right. Their foray into online gaming is a significant development. It's a recognition that the future of entertainment isn't limited to physical locations. They're tapping into a global audience that's increasingly comfortable with digital platforms.
It's a smart move, especially when you consider the younger generation's comfort with online experiences. But this digital expansion also raises some questions. Are they spreading themselves too thin?
Right.
Can they compete effectively in an already crowded online gaming market?
Those are valid concerns. It's a calculated risk for sure. But what's interesting is that they're not simply replicating their casino experience online. They're developing new games, new platforms, and new ways to engage with customers digitally. It's about diversification and innovation.
So it's not just about bringing Vegas online. It's about creating a new kind of digital entertainment experience. That's a bold strategy.
What does this digital push tell us about MGM's long-term vision, and how might it impact their stock performance?
It signals a commitment to growth and adaptation. They're not content to rest on their laurels. They're actively seeking new revenue streams and new ways to connect with a broader audience. Whether this strategy will translate into increased shareholder value remains to be seen. It's a gamble, but it's a calculated one. And that seems to be the recurring theme with MGM: calculated risks, strategic expansion, and a willingness to adapt to a changing world. It's what makes them such a fascinating company to watch, both from an entertainment perspective and an investment perspective.
I agree. They're not afraid to push boundaries and explore new frontiers. And for investors, that creates both opportunities and challenges. It requires careful analysis, a deep understanding of the industry, and a willingness to embrace the unknown.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from their financial performance to their global expansion, their digital ventures, and those crucial upcoming earnings. It's been a truly insightful conversation. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are now pondering whether to add MGM to their portfolios?
Do your homework, dive deep into their financial reports, study their strategic moves, and consider their position within the broader gaming and entertainment landscape, and most importantly, weigh the potential rewards against the risks. MGM is a company in motion, and that creates both excitement and uncertainty.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on Investing Talk Podcast. We hope you found this look at MGM Resorts informative and engaging.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners, be sure to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast. Share this episode with your friends and leave a comment with your thoughts on MGM Resorts. We love hearing from you. Until next time, happy investing.